Hello and welcome to the Sports Extravaganza. I've got a special show here for you today. I'm your co-host Tony Dean, and I'm here with my man, the coach, Kelvin Lee. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great, Tony. Again, this is season number 2. Again, I'm always excited about that. But again, I want to give a shout out right now. I want to think about today. Again, today is one of those days where do you know where you were in history? 9/11. You know, it's 9/11 today, and again, I thought about I was coaching in Chaminade back when the tragic situation happened, and I was walking on the track with my class, and the student ran down to me and said, "Hey guys, the Twin Towers been, the plane ran into the building." I said, oh man, I just froze. You know what I mean? So we walked up and watched that whole deal. But again, we want to give a shout out to the first responders. You know, my daughter's a nurse, you know what I mean? And I want to just give a shout out to her because they're putting their lives on the line every day, you know what I mean? Every day, man. The first responder that went down to that building, and again, give a shout out to them. But again, I want to get back to what we got today. Again, our guest today, again, I feel like I've been knowing him a long time, and again, I've been knowing Coach Martin again for a while because of coaching. Again, that's what it's all about with me. And again, this man's he's had success everywhere he's been. And again, I'm just looking forward to hearing about his journey in his life, some of the ups and downs, because I know I'm a coach and I know what it's all about. I know what his job is, what it entails. So again, I'm looking forward to Coach Martin here. But I'm gonna turn it back over to Batman here.
Oh,
I'll let you take
go.
it away. And again, let's go with the show. Let's roll. It's all the way live with Coach Martin.
We're all the way live with Coach Cuonzo Martin. This is a gentleman that I say the word adjective fits him very well. All the adjectives: toughness, an attitude, a winner, a survivor. I appreciate you being with us today on the Sports Extravaganza. Coach Cuonzo Martin, head men's basketball coach, University of Missouri. How you doing, Coach?
Great, man. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm enjoyed being a part of. I've known Coach for a long time. He's a wonderful man, in my opinion. A high character man, has done a great job in the community. So I'm looking forward to this.
Well, again, Coach, again, like I said before, man, I want to start with your journey. Where did it all begin with you? I know you're East St. Louis, you know what I mean? You're right across the river from us. And tell us about your journey in life and how you built it up to this point.
Well, it really started in St. Louis, Missouri. I was born in Barnes Hospital. My mom and dad was on the St. Louis side. My mom just happened to move to the east side when I was maybe 3.5, 4 years old. So my grandmother's both on the St. Louis side. And, just growing up in East St. Louis was, in my opinion, a tremendous experience of life, living, being around wonderful people, great teachers. My first love was always baseball. I mean, that was it. That was my sport. I was a catcher in baseball. I would catch double hitters. When I got about 14 or 15, I was able to switch it. So that was my main sport. But when I got to high school, East St. Louis Lincoln to me was like for some the Chicago Bulls. That was my dream to be play a part of East St. Louis Lincoln basketball program, and to be able to play for Benny Lewis. That was like Phil Jackson in some people's eyes. That was the guy, Benny Boss Lewis, man. Was just a legendary guy, great charisma, character, humble man, but had a lot of power and humility to him. So just to be able to play for that team, that was my dream, man. Then to play alongside LaFonso Ellis as a young guy. To be under the wing of Jackie Joyner Kersey as a young guy growing up, because I was closer in age to Jackie's sister. So we always had access to Jackie Joyner Kersey, man, for me being in East St. Louis, to be around all of that. And it was just normal. I didn't see Jackie, because she was always around us. And then LaFonso Ellis, we grew up together, was a very talented player. I've been doing this for a long time, but you're talking about a guy with intelligence, skill, talent, toughness. At 6'10", he had the whole package, man. Just to watch him work, his intelligence, the things he could see as a basketball player, and to do the things that he did. And you see him today, you wonder, there's no wonder why he's successful. But my mom, I think she has to get a lot of credit for how I moved. There was a lot of men in my life, man, father figures in my life that helped me move forward. There's a lot of them, coaches, everything, because everybody wanted to see me be successful. But my mom did a tremendous job, man, making ends meet so we can be successful. And I always try to correct it, because when I was younger, meaning entering college, and people asked me, I would say we were poor just because we didn't have a lot. We were never poor. We came from humble beginnings, but we were never poor because we would provide the things that we needed. So I always want to be correct there, and I don't want to shortchange the work that my mom did. But when you're young, you just know what you know. But I've had a blessed life, man, and I'll be 50 years old here in about 10 days, man. So for me, life is full of joy.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, Coach. I mean, it takes a village to raise a child. That's for sure, and that's very true. Myself growing up, I never knew I was poor at all, and that's what you want as a child, you know, growing up. And you grow up, you had a fine career there at East St. Louis Lincoln. I remember myself the 7-up shootout game when Alonzo Mourning came in, and they were supposed to destroy y'all. I think LaFonso Ellis and yourself had something to say about that. It ended up being a close game. Yeah, they got it when it was all said and done, but I think you guys represented very well right there that night.
Now tell us about that game, Coach.
It was again LaFonso. I mean, Alonzo Mourning was no one player in the country. Fonz was probably 3 or 4. I think Sean Kemp was in there. It might have been somebody else. I can't think who it was. It might have been Chris Jackson, but they had Fonz projected as the 4th best guy in the country. But man, you're talking about a stage, man, and the 7-up shootout. That's where it all started. You see all these tournaments around the country. That was the one. I mean, that was the one with you in that tournament, because in that same tournament, I think Kenny Anderson, we played in Allen Houston. We played Mater Dei. They were no one in the country my senior year. So, but that game right there, look, I think, and I don't have the stat sheet in front of me, but I think Alonzo Mourning might have had 9 blocks. But Fonz scored that ball. Now it just came down to why we didn't have enough, and it might have been a 54 to 53 game, somewhere around there. But it was a heck of a game. One, I wish I had the video of it just to see, because I always try to go back nowadays and see myself just a young guy and see how I moved as a basketball player, because it just, you don't get these days back, and you try to enjoy it. I found the older I get, the more I start to enjoy life and get a peace of mind. You understand what it's really about. But that was a heck of a game, a major stage, and we were blessed to be on major stages when I was in high school. We didn't play in the conference, so we traveled anywhere against anybody.
Well, if I remember right, Coach, my stats correctly, the Fonz had 40. You had 28, and you guys.
Those stats, I like those numbers there.
Oh yeah, now Alonzo did his thing. I'm gonna give Alonzo some credit too. Now I gotta give him a little credit. He had 29, he had a gazillion blocks, and he had a gazillion rebounds. That's all I gotta say about that.
He was a player, man, and he had those calves on him, man. I remember we used to talk about, because Alonzo Mourning, he had those calves like they were softballs, man. It's like, this guy. He wasn't afraid to block shots. That's probably why he's one of the best shot blockers in the history of the game.
Coach, tell us a little bit about your game now.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what did you have a mid-range? Was there a 3-point line back? Now, you're not that old. They probably had a 3-point line then, didn't they? But tell us about how you play the game. I heard you were a defender too. I want to hear about you as a player.
The thing when I came out of high school, Coach, well, first off, started back when I was in the 9th grade. I blew my knee out, so I fractured my knee, and I still have 2 screws. They call them pins or screws, or whichever one you want to call it, in my knee to this day. And that was in '87. So, and I remember before the doctor was about to put me under with the anesthetic, and I said, "Will I be able to play again?" That was the most important thing to me. And he said, "Yeah, you'll be able to play. You'll be fine." And that was the biggest thing for me, just being able to play again. So just the rehab and all that. And back then we had the white cast where they put on your leg, the plastic cast.
Right.
And I remember, growing up in those environments, you don't really understand what it means to go rehab. So what happened, I'm walking down the street, one of my friends, and just walking with the cast, and all of a sudden the cast breaks. So I just take it all right there, and that was it. So it's just like the cast is off. I didn't have to go back to the doctor. But I paid for that later through the rehab. But my game was simply, I was a slasher. I was all around the rim. I think I was a very coachable guy. Whatever coach wanted me to do, I did. I was never one of those guys to get out of my element, because whatever coach wanted from me, I did that. So I was slashing in high school. I didn't shoot threes at all. We had guys that did that. And then when I got to Purdue, I had to learn how to shoot 3-point shots. And again, that was not my game. So when I went to Purdue, so in high school, I'm more of a slasher forward type guy. So now at Purdue, I'm playing on the perimeter as a wing guy, and I didn't really handle the ball. Didn't really shoot threes at all. So I had to learn all those things. And that first year, it was tough, especially that first 15 games, just learning how to play on the perimeter at that level. And in high school, we played a 1-2-2, 1-2, 1-1 diamond press back to a 2-3 zone. and we were very effective at it. So now when I go to college, it's 100% man to man. So that was also an adjustment. But the one thing coming out of East St. Louis, you had a level of toughness and a desire to be a defensive player because you played against older guys. So that part helped me in my transition to Purdue. But I'll never forget my sophomore year, because I didn't shoot threes at all my freshman year, but my sophomore year, Coach Katie, I was 0 for 6 from the three-point line, and Coach Katie just said, "Don't shoot any more threes." And I'm assuming maybe for a couple of games, but that was for the season. Don't shoot any more threes. So I didn't shoot another 3 the rest of the season. But I continued to work on it. And then the next 2 years, my junior and senior year, I ended up breaking the school record, probably the fastest in school history. Made 179 in 2 years, and I still hold the record, I think, for percentage. But it was just a lot of work that was put into it, and I did get discouraged, and it was uncomfortable times. That's why I say to young guys all the time, man, if you want to be great, there's a sacrifice and a commitment you have to make, and it's exhausting. There's nothing pretty about it. Those days you want to be at home. So I rarely had a chance to go home in the summertime because I spent so much time in the gym trying to get better because I wanted to be the best player I can become. Plus playing alongside Glenn Robinson, the number 1 pick in the draft in '94, when guys leaving him, double teaming him because I really couldn't shoot the ball. It's like, man, you got to become a player. So I really worked on my three-point shot and it just improved my game. And when you're able to do that, it improves your confidence.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, you improved it to 45%. 45.1%.
You kidding me? Because you were 45% three-point shooter?
One season he was, you better believe it. 45%.
Well, it was one year, I think it's like, so the average is 45, but I think it's one of his years is 47%. And then it averaged out to like,
I bet you Gene Katie didn't say stop shooting it then, did he?
No way.
He was like, keep shooting.
No way.
Hey, Coach, I was on a webinar, Brad Bill Elite webinar last week, with coaches webinar, and we had Matt Painter. Matt Painter was on there. He was a guest speaker on the webinar. He talked about you as a player a little bit. Yeah, he said some interesting things. How was it like with Matt?
Great, Matt. So Matt and I, of course, were teammates. And Matt, so my freshman year, Matt was a junior. And Matt was my roommate on the road. And so Matt was a starter at that position. So I ended up getting the starting position. But the one thing about Matt Painter, that's why he's a very successful coach to this day. Matt Painter was all basketball. I mean, he was one of those guys, Street Smith magazine. He have all these magazines all the time, just anything. He was all of that, So you knew this would be his path. And the great thing about him, though we were competing against each other, he would always give me advice of, this is what coach looking for. I know coach said this and it's hard, but here's what he's really saying. So he was a great teammate. So he wouldn't call up on himself like, I'm getting these minutes as my minutes. He was doing what was best for the team. So now it's like, if you're the guy that's going to help us be successful as a team, here's the things you have to get. And don't get so caught up in how coach saying, but understand what he's saying. Because coach will come hard as Coach Katie. And I love coach. Coach was great. But what happened, coach, you shoot a ball in the corner. I shoot a 15, 17 foot in the corner, and I miss it wide open. Coach will slam his jacket. So the next time I come down, if I don't shoot it, he'd take me out like, you scared the players. Like, hey, coach, man, I don't know what to do out here. But it was great. It was a valuable lesson and just in understanding him. But if I didn't have Matt Painter, a guy right there that had the blueprint, understood what coach was looking for, it'd have been a struggle for me. But no, it was just it was great being around Paint. And I also worked under him. When he got the head coaching job, and Paint's just a good guy. He's a good guy. He's about his players. He want to be successful. He's not caught up in all the small stuff.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm glad Coach, I know you got some questions, but I'm rolling right now.
Yeah, I got
Coach right now. I got him right now.
I see you rolling.
Coach, this is Gene Katie.
Yeah.
All right. Great coach, legendary coach, probably a Hall of Famer. Okay. But here's the deal. I got a little story to tell you about Gene Katie. All right. Gene Katie recruited David Lee when I was in Chaminade, right? He walks in the gym. He had the little comb over, had that hairstyle. And I couldn't help but laugh at him, I started laughing. But, he walked in the gym and he walked up. And he walked up to me. One of my assistant coaches was the head football coach, right? Doug Taylor. So he walked over to us and I had this big 6'8" kid that was an offensive lineman on the football field, on the football team, right? So he walks over, he says, Coach, come here. He said, that kid over there played football, didn't he? He played football. And Doug Taylor was like, how'd you know that, Coach? He said, I used to play football. I have a football background. I know those football players when I see them. And he leaned over and said, that kid wasn't worth a damn, was he? We just started rolling, man. He knew right away that kid couldn't play because he couldn't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. You know, but Gene Katie was a great guy, great sense of humor, made you laugh, but he was one of those intense guys. Talk to us a little bit about your experiences with Coach Katie, Coach.
The thing with Coach, and it just, Coach, I think 85 now, and we probably talk once a week. And the thing with Coach, he was tough when you look at him on the surface. And then when you didn't know him as a young player coming in, you know he was tough. He had to have that edge to him. But I describe him as I got older as a teddy bear. And I say that with respect when I describe it. I'd never demean Coach. He always be Coach to me, a father figure to me, but because he was that type of guy. Once you understood what he wanted, play as hard as you can play, try your best, go to class every day, you were good. Right. He wasn't one of those guys that say, okay, I need you to average this many points. I need you. He wasn't that. Try your best, play as hard as you can play, and go to class every day. Because one thing he would always say that stuck to me, he said, every day you go to class, you'll put $100 in your bank account. He said, now every day you miss class, you'll take 1,000 out. And so for me, it's like I didn't have a lot of money anyway, but I knew that math. So I need to go to class. And it just, but what he was, though, he was a great teacher of life. And yeah, he understood the game, coached the game. But Coach did a great job of teaching life lessons. Like, for example, his correlation of when you don't make your bed in the morning, that's a correlation, minute left in the game, 2 minutes left in the game, the discipline, the focus it takes to do the right things. All those things matter to Coach, man, and he made a big deal of it. But he was a good man, a high character man. He valued him. And what I tell people all the time today, because I didn't understand it when I was younger, but as a coach now, you see a lot of older coaches. The way older guys used to coach then, the things they used to say, you can't say those things today. Yeah. And so what happened was, but for me, Benny Lewis and Coach Katie, they never coached like that. Those guys, they didn't degrade you, they didn't belittle, they didn't use something. They weren't those type of guys. They were very successful. So for me, that's part of the reason why I'm not a guy that's cussing you. I don't do any of that, because though those guys look tough, their demeanor might say otherwise, but those guys didn't belittle or mistreat their players. And that's why they had so much success, because they were able to communicate back in those times with guys with a level of humility. And they got their point across, but they never tried to break your spirits. And I think that's what made both successful.
That's a good point, Coach. Again, I played for one of those guys in Gene Iber. You know, the Iber family back then, back in those days, it was just mean SOBs, man. I'm gonna put it out there straight, Coach. They were just mean. I told Coach Iber, you don't know how many times I want to beat you up. You know what I mean? You call me that one more time, I'm gonna beat your butt, Coach. I guarantee you felt that way with Coach Katie at some point, didn't you?
Repeat that, Coach.
Say it again?
You saying you felt that?
Yeah, I'm sure you felt that way about, again, like I said, I wanted to beat my coach up, Gene Iver, almost every day in practice, man.
You know what the difference was for me? And I was a guy that tried to do everything the coaching staff asked me, and I didn't agree. Just like when my mom would say stuff all the time growing up, you don't understand it when you're younger. I didn't have to agree, but I never was disrespectful. I did what she said. Doing as you get older, you realize they were right, but I was never disrespectful in my approach if I disagreed. And the one thing about Coach Katie and those guys, and Coach Katie, he made me a captain as a sophomore. That was the first time in the history of doing that. I was a captain as a sophomore, and I was far from the best player, but he understood what I was about as a teammate and as a leader. All I cared about was winning and making sure guys did what they were supposed to do as basketball players and as teammates. So he understood I could relay information from the court to the locker room when guys upset. And I'm just running just like other guys, but we had to keep the main thing. The goal is to get better. We're trying to win. It's okay that we can argue and say whatever we want to say about coaching. That's what players do. We do it all the time. But in the end, we understand what we're trying to do, and let's go take care of the task at hand.
It was all about discipline, Coach. Again, he used to just tell me all the time, I knew I had that in you guys. And I could make you guys mad, but you turn around and we win games. Some of these kids today, they put their tail between their legs, they start pouting. You know what I mean? When you challenge them a little bit, that's a difference in back then and today's society that we're living in. In high school, I didn't have that, but in college, I got that discipline. And again, I'm that way now. I still got some old school values in me, but I don't do all the cussing and the profanity that that back then the way it was. But I know I feel you, Coach, on that. But again, Gene Katie was special. He was a special man. I miss watching him on the sidelines.
Definitely a special man. Also, I want to get back to you too, Coach, because there's something that we use as a term that came in college and then later on in the NBA, And you were that term before the term was even out there. 3D. You were 3D in college without a doubt. I mean, you played dogged defense, but you made the three-pointer. And that slogan wasn't even famous back then. And you're one of the pioneers of playing basketball that way. And I want to hear about some of your greatest triumphs on the court when you were at Purdue. You know, the conference tournaments, some of the games that you remember, going up against some of the better players that you remember. What do you remember as a player at Purdue?
Well, the biggest thing is when I left East St. Louis, again, a tradition of winning. So when I left East St. Louis, the ultimate goal, because back then we didn't talk so much about, okay, I got to be an NBA player like this talk today. You had aspirations, but it wasn't your goal. Like this, the ultimate goal. So for me, the whole thing for me was, you're going to college. It was so many unknowns. You're unfamiliar territory. You're away from home, a comfort zone of my mom. You're away from that. And that's an adjustment that we don't talk about with young men and women that leave from home. That's not an easy transition. Though we try to be tough, it's not easy, because I love my mother dearly, and to be away from her, that was an adjustment. So it was just understanding I have to always play as hard as I can play. And for me, outside of, going a lot of love at home, there was not a lot at home, like industries, jobs, and opportunities. So I had to make it work when I left from home. So everything in my power, I had to be the best I can be. And even though I struggled early, I've always loved the journey of struggle. I've always loved that. As long as God has me on this earth, then I'm good. I got a chance. But I've always loved the pain of journey, not the pain, the physical pain where it breaks you, but the pain of struggling. Okay, how can I get better? Because for me, obstacle has always been a way of life. That's nothing. That just, let me move this roadblock out the way. I get over the top of it, go around it, but I'm getting to where I have to go. And I've never been discouraged by anything, because as long as I have a chance to make something happen, I'll make it happen. You will not stop me from making it happen. So it just, even in my game, I couldn't shoot 3-point shots. Well, that means I have to be in the gym till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I couldn't walk back on that floor not able to make shots, because that's who I was. That had nothing to do with coach. Coach wasn't in the gym with me in those hours when I was working on my shot. Coach said, get better at your shot. That was me. And back that time, 500 plus shots a day was a lot of shots. When you didn't have the gun machines and all that, that was somebody rebounding for you. So I had to do that. And it was and for me, the beauty about everything I went through in college, I could never call home to anybody and say, coach mistreated me, coach not playing me, coach. Everybody back home said, man, don't call me with that. You know what to do. You've made it out. You know what to do. So that was the luxury and the beauty for me. There was nobody to call back home to make excuses. Oh, my mother would say, are you reading your Bible? And I wasn't reading like I should have been reading, but I said, yeah, I'm reading my Bible. But that's all it was. There was nothing else. So you had to keep pushing forward. So that's why I always say, keep pushing forward. And I struggle with our young players when they have excuses about so many different things. And I said, man, I listen to you and I respect the fact what you're saying, but I can't really comprehend that, because I've seen a mother struggle to make ends meet with 4 kids to provide for a family. I've seen a father with 3 kids try to make ends meet. I've seen a man come out of prison probably wrongfully accused. He still got to make it go for his family. I've seen a man very successful, and all of a sudden now he has to go get a job at McDonald's when he's making probably $70,000. I've seen that. I've seen the humility in which they operate. So I have no sympathy for an excuse of you can't get up and work in your game. I really struggle with it. And I think in our society today, we've allowed our youth to be comfortable with giving up. It's okay to give up. It's all right. No, it's not okay. We've allowed them not to have accountability. We allowed them not to have compassion, gratitude, humility, respect. You can go on and on. Like when you play a sport, then you're serving because you're a part of a team. There's a sacrifice that has to be made in order for us to be successful as a team. This is not an individual sport. If you want to go, then go find an individual sport. Nothing wrong with it. When it's a team sport, it's not so much the youth anymore. It's the parents. They create the chaos. Like, allow the coach to do the job. As hard as it is, allow me to do the job as a coach. As a parent, sit back and enjoy the ride. If it's not the best thing for you, then find something that is. But parents have to realize the capacity in which they operate. If the kid is struggling, allow that kid to work it out between the coach and the kid. Now, if the coach is mistreating your kid physically, that's a different issue. But if the kid is struggling with playing time and minutes, allow them to work it out with the coach, because what happens, whatever comes out of that, they will learn a lesson of value, how to handle situations, how to communicate on their own. Because eventually I will not be under mom and dad's umbrella anymore, and I got to operate on my own. But I think too many times as parents, we jump in too quick and they never grow. And what happens is when they get into life and they leave home and there's chaos around them and they don't have the structures and the boundaries to survive, now the parents can no longer help them because they're gone now. And I think those are the things we have to be better at, in my opinion, in all this sport, all whatever it is. Our parents have to be better in which and how they operate, and sometimes just take a step back, allow it to take its course.
That's why I gotta say.
Yeah.
That's why I love you, Coach, because that's the thing. You are about adjectives, the toughness, the drive, the independence, and everything like that. That's what led you to get to the NBA. That's what led you to be cancer. And I just love that. Go ahead, Coach. You got something
again,
before I get going again.
We as coaches play a vital role in the maturity and the growth of these kids. Again, we all have stories, but again, what you just said, Coach, hit home with me when it comes. Like I'm gonna give you an example. Like Bradley Beal, you know, when he came to Chaminade, he was a kid. You know what I mean? And he had one of the toughest moms around. Bester Bill, that's a mean lady. You know what I mean? And I always tell people that if you can put up with Bester Bill, you can put up with anybody. You know what I mean? So again, I never forget the situation where he might have been a freshman or a sophomore, and his JV and his history teacher was a JV soccer coach, and they had a game this particular day. And I'm gonna cut this story short, but again, I was a freshman football coach at the time. I was way down the field, and the kids started running down the field. Coach Lee, we need your help. I said, what's going on? Bester. I said, oh God. I knew then something was going on. So I took off, ran up. She was walking across that field, going at this particular individual, this coach. I'm like, I went and grabbed her. I said, come back. What are you doing? I took her to the atrium up on campus, you know. That coach was his history teacher, had docked this grade. You know, parents can go on the computer and check their grades every day now. So his grade dropped, but the teacher told the class, if you turn in one copy and don't turn in, the grade's gonna go down, but you can turn in the other copy. So again, I grabbed her. I said, what are you doing, Miss Bill? Wait, I said, one, it don't look good what you're doing. Run out there on that field. And I said, well, that thing, teacher, he died. I said, and Bradley standing there, oh boy, he was scared to death. And I said, Bradley, what did that teacher tell you? He said, well, when I turn another copy in, you know, my grade's coming up. I said, Miss Bill, you gotta let Bradley fight his own battles. That's exactly what you were just saying right there.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes parents gotta let kids, with my son, I'm not running up there. I did a lot of things going, but you gotta fight your own battle sometimes. That's where parents lose the boat. They come running too soon and not letting their kid do their work. Am I right, Coach?
I think you're 100% correct. And the things I always talk about is I think what happens, I think this is what happens, because we both know every parent wants their child to be successful. We understand. They want them to be very successful. But I think sometimes what happens, like I'll give you an example to say what I'm about to say. My daughter played, my oldest son ran cross country. I know nothing about cross country. I watch, I go to the games. After the game, I give him a pound, great job, whether he did a great job or not, pound. Because I love him, that doesn't change. We get in the car with him. If you ask me a question about it, great. My daughter plays volleyball. She's competitive. I watch, I observe, I cheer on, whatever, give her a hug, kiss her after the game, whatever, that's it. But what happens is, because I don't know those sports, I stay in my lane. And I think oftentimes, not all the time, we listen to people, like for example, we have to stop listening to people that never been where we're trying to go. You know, so what happens is, if the coach is the coach, he's been there, then let the coach be the director. But what happened, outside influences start manipulating the situation, the conversation, and that's where you have the chaos, and that's where you have your problems. So what I always try to do is stay in my lane. And people see me at games. I watch my son play basketball. I don't say a word. I sit there and I watch the game. After the game, a pound. That's it. If you ask me something, I'll tell them, here's my 2 cents, just be strong with the ball. And it was never anything that had to do with coach. It was never any of that, strong with the ball, whatever it is. Because everybody have their place. And what I found, all I want to do is love my children. I don't never want to create any disruption or anything that create less than love in my household. Because I know, Coach, I know the pain of what sports bring. Just think about the sports. I've had 4 knee surgeries. I have shoulder surgery. I have so many different things, Coach. I'm coach. Oh, coach, you can't coach. You can't do it. You have all of that, coach. That's pain in which you operate in the world of sport when it's supposed to be entertaining. I never wanted my kids' experience. I didn't want them to even play sports. All I wanted them to do is play 2 sports, just for the camaraderie and the fitness of it, not necessarily to be professional, because there's a lot of pain behind it. You think about it, coach. LeBron James, and people argue, I'm not here to argue between LeBron James and MJ, but LeBron James will probably go, and I think he needs to average 18 or 19 points again in the next 2 years. He would be the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA. In my opinion, he will go down in history as the best all-around player to ever lace up some sneakers in the game, ever. And he probably get criticized more than any sports figure in the world today. Now imagine the pain in which he operates those blows. Here's a guy that entertains the world, a guy that doesn't have a blip on his radar from the standpoint of character, and he get criticized more than anybody in the world. And it's just unbelievable to me, a pure entertainer, and you critical of me every day. Just let me entertain. If you don't like it, you don't need to speak about it. You don't like me, that's fine. And I think our society is so much corruption. And can you imagine, and you wonder why youth can't be at the level of success they want to be or need to be, because everybody's so critical of them. So now, instead of me reaching out, trying to be successful and reaching and striding for my goals, well, I'm gonna sit back in this role. I'm gonna be a role player instead of being a star, because I've seen how you treat LeBron as a star. I've seen how you treat KD as a star. I don't know if I want to be a star. I'll just be in this role. So now I never maximize who I'm supposed to be, because you're always so critical of me. And then you wonder why I'm gonna jump off track, and you wonder why the suicide rate is so high for our youth. The bullying rate is so high for our youth because of social media. I don't understand how you allow youth to have a social media platform where there's any negativity on it. If there's any negativity between 0 to 18 years old, you should completely shut them down. They shouldn't have a page, because you wonder why the anxiety, stress levels, the worries, and all those things for our youth are so high. I don't want to go to school. I'm depressed, anxiety. Well, it's not because of the food I eat. It's because of how I'm treated. And oftentimes our adults treat our youth worse than our youth treat each other, which is a sad, sad world.
See, speaking to you, coach, lets me know why Mizzou picked a good one in you. I mean, a real good one. I mean, you get these naysayers out here that want to say things about Cuonzo Martin is only a recruiter. Cuonzo Martin doesn't stay in a place very long, only 2 or 3 years, whatever. And I think they're nuts. I mean, you won everywhere. You won in Missouri State. You won at Tennessee. You won at Cal. You're winning now at Mizzou. 2 straight times in the NCAA tournament. And now these naysayers again here in the SEC, they want to say you only gonna come in 10th in the SEC. They gotta put some respect. They gotta put some respect on Kobe Brown's name. They gotta put some respect on Javon Pickett's name. They gotta put some respect on your whole team and you and your coaching ability. I mean, what do you think about this stuff, man? These so-called predictions.
I'm going to answer that because you asked me, but I don't think about it, because here's the truth of the matter. What somebody's perception of me has nothing to do with me. Whatever you think of me, it has nothing to do with me. And I always go back to this. When they lay me to rest, hopefully it's a long time and I'm able to see grandkids and probably great grandkids. How many of those people that criticize you or critical of you will be there anyway? Now, and I'm not talking about media guys. Media has a job, do their job. That's part of entertainment. You got to say pros, cons. That's part of it. But I guess I'm assuming you're saying so-called fans. You're not a fan of mine if you're critical of me. If I'm not entertaining to you, then you're not a fan of mine. I'm not a guy that's in between. You with me or you're not. I don't do the in-between stuff, because I'm my own man. I have the right to be that and do that. I don't really worry about what somebody's perception of me is, because I know what life is. And one thing I always learn, I'll read this to you. Just because and I tell our players this, just because we're not in the arena doesn't mean the fight is not going on. It's all in your mind. If I'm consumed with what somebody constantly thinks about me, then what am I really doing? My focus is where I get consumed with, and my fight is I got to make sure every youth in and around this Midwest, in and around Missouri, in and around the Illinois area that hear my name and see me, what do they see? Character, accountability, humility, compassion, gratitude. They got to see that. So all of a sudden it's the next one. So now I just open the door for the next one. That's male or female youth. I mean, it's all the same to me. That's white or black. It's all the same to me. I don't get caught what color you are. It's all people. It's all our youth. So when they see that, I want them to see that. we all make mistakes. And I let them know, see, I made this mistake. Yeah, that means I'm human. So you'll make mistakes. So that means don't be so critical on yourself when you make a mistake. It's the bump in the road, keep pushing forward. What happens on our side, we don't allow our youth to make mistakes. So they feel like they have to be perfect. And then you wonder why they have some of these outcomes they have because of how we make them feel.
Amen.
Well,
Amen.
Coach, we're getting close to wrapping this thing up, okay? But before we do, I just got one more thing I want you to talk about, and it touches me too because again, life-changing events. You know, 2 years ago, I had a situation where I had blood clots in my lungs, and I really shouldn't be here today, but it wasn't my time to go. I fought it off. The Lord took care of me. But again, you battled cancer, you know, in your lifetime, and talk to us a little bit about that life-changing event for you.
That was a fight, and people always ask me, you know, did that change me from the standpoint of how I coach and how I operate? Not at all, not at all, because years ago, you know, we used to always pray prayers when I grew up. You know, God, could you help us pay our bills? God, could you put food on the table? All those prayers. And I just, maybe about 10, 11 years ago, I got tired of that prayer. I just said, God, give me your toughest assignment, and whatever happens, happens. Because when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was playing professional ball. For those that don't know the story, I know many have heard it. I'm normally 215 pounds. I was in Avellino, Italy playing. We had a practice, and so I went over in August. This is like November. I sprinted to half court. I tried to. And this is how I was breathing as I was running, and I just dropped. I hit the floor, and they took me back in the training room, and the trainer couldn't speak any English. But what he was trying to say is when you first came over, you were big, but he said, now you're small. So I went from 215 to 185 pounds between like August and November. So they did a lot of tests and x-rays that day. And then that next morning, the owner of the team said, we need to fly you back to the States immediately. So they flew me from Rome to New York to Indianapolis. When I got to Indianapolis, my wife and I went to the hospital, and it might have been between, so many years time passed, it might have been between 1:30 to 3 in the morning. That's the time we got to the hospital, tests, x-rays, blood work. And I'll never forget the doctor's face. I don't remember his name. And my wife was kind of sitting to the side with my son. He was 4 months old, Joshua. And the doctor said, I don't know if you're going to die, but this is life-threatening. And I looked at him, I looked over, not nearly at him. I looked at my wife, looked at her quick and looked away because I didn't want her to see me get emotional. Not that she hadn't seen me before. I just wanted to be strong in this situation. And again, Josh, 4.5 months old, somewhere around there. And I just, you know, before they found out if it was cancer or not, because they knew it was something, and they found a tumor about the size of a baseball between my chest and lung area. So before they knew for sure, they were hoping it was tuberculosis. And so when I had to stay in the room, because if it was tuberculosis, then my wife, Roberta, and my son, Josh, they couldn't be in the room with me. So I was in the room by myself, you know, the glass window, and they were on the other side. And they stayed overnight, but just on the other side. And I just simply prayed to God, you know, the peace and all of that, really, I was so exhausted. I really was. And I say this with all respect. If it was time, then physically, I had nothing in me to fight. It was just kind of whatever, you know, just because it wasn't the pain of like, oh, so God graced me with not so much pain. And I just said, God, if it's your will, then let it be. But if not, allow me to see Joshua turn 18. And that was it. That was my prayer. That was my consistent prayer. Allow me to see Joshua turn 18. Joshua's 24 years old now. He's in his second year at Boston University studying speech pathology. So we're ahead of the game. So for me, that's the beauty in life. But I knew what it was. And it took me probably until like a couple of years where I never even said the word cancer. I don't know why. It was like, and the last person I called, because when we came back to the States and I was going through it, the only way anybody found out, because we lived in Indianapolis, so obviously Purdue people know who I am. So when we had to go to the hospital, the doctors, the checkups and treatments and all that, it was one of the nurses. She was a nice lady. She went home to her grandfather and was just talking about, I have this patient, this. And when she said the name, of course, it's a unique name. And when she said the name, he was like, who? And then it just kind of, boom, went from there, because Coach Katie actually called me and said, Zoe, you all right? Because I wasn't going to say anything to anybody. It was just me and my wife, and you know, Josh was 4 months old. And then I had to call my mom, because that was probably the last person that I called, because people of importance, because everybody else had to find out. But it was the hardest call for me to make, because here's a woman that my whole life was I got to make sure she's successful. I got to make sure she sees me as success. So my wife had to make me call her. And so my wife actually dialed the number so I can call my mom because it was so hard to say it to her. And it was just, it was tough. And because I felt like I was letting her down, even though it wasn't me. But obviously she's a strong woman. So here we are today.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, Coach. Appreciate that a lot. I know we could go on and on with this, but we're going to have to wrap it up here from the Sports Extravaganza. Thank you very much for joining us, Cuonzo Martin. And I predict more than 10th place for the Mizzou Tigers. I'll say it. The Mizzou Tigers are going to be tough this year. And you're going to make the NCAA tournament again, Coach. That's my prediction. What do you say, Coach?
Before you wrap it up, Tony, I know that we're gonna keep this thing rolling, Coach. Again, I feel you. I feel your passion. I can tell you, I'm a coach. You know what I mean? That's what I bring today. I can feel by the way you talk, your passion for this game and your passion for your players, and that's important. That translates into winning games.
That's
when
right.
your players, and I can tell you by listening to you, your players probably know you care about them.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And that's what you look for on the recruiting. I've dealt with you on the recruiting track. I've talked to you a few times by way of phones, but I can tell you care about your players, Coach. I've watched your practices and your organization. You're a top-notch. I respect you, and I want to come down there and watch you some more. I want you to open your door, Coach, because I like talking to you, okay? But again, it's all about relationships with us.
That's right.
Let's continue this relationship, Coach. And again, continue to win. And again, I'll be down there next week. I'm coming to that coach's clinic. I don't know if you're going to be around, but if you are, I'd like to sit down and talk to you. But again, thank you, Coach. I appreciate you being on the show, and the best of luck to you.
Best of luck, and God bless you, Coach. God bless you. That's it for the Sports Extravaganza for today. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody.